A match made in heaven, or a quick path to electoral victory? Julie Nixon proved you really can have it both ways. In a 2015 interview with CNN, then Prince Charles recounted his past visits to the United States. His first in 1970 stood out for more reasons than one. Charles said that was the time that they were trying to marry me off to Tricia Nixon. Tricia's father, Richard Nixon, might well have suffered from royal envy. At the time, the president tried harder than any of his recent predecessors to emulate the trappings of monarchy. If Nixon did harbor any hopes for a dynastic alliance with the House of Windsor, however, he was doomed to disappointment. Still, his younger daughter had found a match by then, one that could be called the American equivalent of a royal marriage. Nixon's relationship with Dwight D. Eisenhower was complicated. Eisenhower once tried to remove Nixon from the 1952 presidential ticket over a financial scandal, and later tried to offload him into the cabinet. Nevertheless, Nixon proved himself a loyal vice president over 8 years, and Eisenhower gradually built up a respect for Nixon's political acumen. Then, during Nixon's tenure as president-elect, his daughter Julie married Eisenhower's grandson David. By the time he left the White House in 1960, Dwight D. Eisenhower had come to appreciate Richard Nixon. Generally distrustful of career politicians, Eisenhower nevertheless needed his vice president's firebrand reputation to shore up support among segments of his own party. But respect didn't necessarily mean unequivocal support. During Nixon's run for the presidency in 1960, Charles Moore of Time magazine asked Eisenhower about any policies that Nixon had convinced him to adopt. The president replied,
"If you give me a week, I might think of one. I don't remember, because..."
Eisenhower's feelings were similarly hedged when it came to their personal lives. David and Julie were the same age and had known each other since 1956. Although not particularly close as children, they reconnected during college. But the news that they were dating didn't exactly thrill Eisenhower. Eisenhower worried that David's career would be hurt by marrying too soon, and he made his feelings quite plain. When David proposed to Julie, he couldn't even break the news to his grandfather one-on-one, forcing him to wait for a large family group to gather. Julie's charm eventually won Eisenhower over, and she may even have helped soften his attitude toward her father, as author Jeffrey Frank told U.S. News and World Report. That also changed the idea about Nixon, that anyone who had a daughter this charming can't be all that bad. David Eisenhower and Julie Nixon became engaged in March 1967, while both were attending college. The couple, both 19 at the time, had already faced pressure from David's grandfather to slow their relationship down. But as the 1968 presidential campaign got underway, they faced a different sort of pressure, this time from the bride-to-be's father. Richard Nixon counted on Julie and David during his run for the presidency. They presented the perfect image of a traditional, clean-cut couple during a time when that vision of American life was giving way to counterculture. But the timing of the wedding, Nixon felt, was crucial. When Julie and David discussed setting a date for June 1968, Nixon fretted that it would look too much like a publicity move. He also worried that Dwight Eisenhower would blame him for exactly that, a point on which David concurred. When Nixon became president-elect later that year, however, he changed his tune on making a show out of the wedding. Nixon lobbied his daughter to set a date after his inauguration and to hold the wedding in the White House. Against that pressure, David and Julie Eisenhower instead married on December 22, 1968 in New York City. After his wedding and his time at Amherst College, David Eisenhower caused a minor scandal by going into the Naval Reserve instead of the U.S. Army, a move Time rather cheekily likened to Ulysses S. Grant joining the Confederates. Meanwhile, Julie Nixon Eisenhower turned her attention to politics. While she has never sought office herself, she had acted as an enthusiastic surrogate for her father during his 1968 campaign. And it was all plain sailing until, well, you know.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Still, after the Watergate scandal broke, Julie's support for Richard Nixon was so sincere and so fierce that reporters felt admiration and intimidation in equal measure. Neither David nor Julie became career politicians or government workers, citing their moderate views compared to the modern Republican Party. Julie once told CBS that they'd simply never be elected today. Instead, they have worked as authors, separately and as a team, and focused on philanthropic work. As of December 2023, they will have been married for 55 years, but don't expect a lavish celebration. This couple is happy to go unrecognized by the greater public.